Harry, thank you so much for joining us. It's such a pleasure to be speaking to you today.
Yeah, thank you. It's just nice to chat to somebody, in these strange times, share some ideas and some stories.
Absolutely. I'm very curious to know why you call yourself a tragic foodie.
So whenever I'm trying to be good, like I've just been for an hour and a half, well, that just kind of just justifies in my foodie brain that I can be extravagant tonight with dinner. When I travel, for example, it's all about food. If I go to Europe and, I go to a wonderful city like Rome, it's not because I want to see the Colosseum or the Pantheon. It tends to be that, I want to go and sit in a little cafe and drink espresso or, eat buffalo mozzarella and, Parma ham. And, the sights are a kind of secondary, thing for me, so my poor family, we've traveled to many places in the world, but mainly to do with food, which is not bad, but
yeah.
So maybe that's why I'm a tragic foodie, who knows?
Okay, all right. But your love for food and your love for travel, everyone knows about it. But unfortunately, these two industries were the worst hit in the pandemic. And they're the ones who also ended up innovating the most. So now that the world is slowly opening up, what are you most excited for when it comes to this food industry?
It's been a real struggle, particularly for hospitality and tourism. They are, been, I suppose, singly the hardest hit industries. I mean, many more, but, I suppose because I've got many colleagues and friends that are still in the business, it's been really, really difficult. And who knows what the industry is going to look like going forward. So I think, here in Australia, it's quite odd. I even said to my wife the other day, we were going past the Botanical Gardens, which is just outside the CBD. It was quite busy, and I said it's quite odd to think that there are actually no tourists there.
Yeah.
That everybody there is Melburnian and belongs there. Well, not even Australian, because the borders are shut between South Australia and New South Wales, for example, at the moment, opening soon. But so everybody that's there is a Melburnian, through and through, or they've been caught, whether they've been studying or traveling or whatever at the time. So it's quite odd. And so when I think in between lockdowns, I was up in Sydney working, and I was walking around Circular Quay, which is normally, because you get glimpse, you're on the harbour essentially.
Right.
And so if there's tourists, that's where they are. And it felt quite strange because once again, I said, the faces that you're seeing they're not from India, they're not from Korea or from America, and the voices you hear are Australian. So I suppose when we say, what are we looking forward to? I'm looking forward to the borders opening, people coming back in, life returning to, whatever that looks like. I think fairly normal with our kind of extensive vaccination program worldwide. And of course, for us to be able to leave and, for me to travel, come to India, go to the UK to see my parents. So, I mean, we're all, I think, a lot of us that are used to that, I suppose the lucky ones that are used to traveling, we're chomping at the bit to, even just sit in a plane seat is going to be quite exciting.
I'm sure. You have over 3 decades of experience in the restaurant industry, and you've seen it all, I'm sure. But do you still get swept up in these viral food trends? For example, did you bake sourdough? Did you make dalgona coffee in the lockdown?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, some of the trends are kind of ridiculous. Like I always laugh at the TikToks where there'd be a trick to peel garlic and, I don't know, odd bits and pieces, and you just go, it doesn't work, just don't worry about it. Or terrible, overloaded sandwiches and ice creams and things like that. Yeah, I don't enjoy that. But what I did love during certainly the first lockdown last year was the fact that people really kind of dug in, and, for me, obviously I am a tragic foodie, so that's my life. But to see other people kind of, falling into the rabbit hole along, like sourdough or, baking chocolate cake, or, I mean, baking was a big thing. I think, it's that, a sense of, nourishment for the family and comfort and, keeping the family together and doing nice things, filling the house with lovely smells. And I really appreciated that so many amateurs actually over that period of time became experts, not only in just sourdough, but things like, I remember following somebody that was just mad on panettone, which is that Italian sweet bread. And I think I've made panettone maybe once or twice in my life. And, here are these people making it, so regularly that their Instagram feed is full of some of the best panettone you've ever seen in your life. So, I've loved that. I've loved that, kind of reconnection with cooking at home. Yeah. It's what
great.
I'm trying to champion all the time. Restaurants are fun, cafes are fun, street food's fabulous, but actually at the center of all that always should be great, food on the family table.
Yeah. Good food every day is your first cookbook in, I think, 7 years.
Yeah, it's a long time.
Yeah. And it's a collection of your favorite home recipes. Was the decision to come out with this book, like you're saying, influenced by how much people have been cooking and eating at home in the last 2 years?
I'm not sure, actually. I think it was timely. Many of us that write cookbooks, we go, really, is there room for another cookbook in the world? Like I think I'll give it a rest for a while. And then I came the itch, it returns and you want to put pen to paper. And I think, probably a combo, the fact that there were just lots of things that I was cooking at home and lots of things that I've done, whether they're for events or, for Zoom events. And I thought, it's time to share them, and really the top line ideas, when the publisher said, do you want to scribble down some top line ideas? We're thinking maybe 150, 200 recipes. I think I jotted down about 400 to 500 recipes, just top line ideas in an afternoon. And I said, well, okay, I've got easy, we're going to do 2 books or a big book. So we've done quite a big book. I think there's about 300 plus, recipes in there. And I've got plenty more to fall back on. So if I need to do good food every day, part two, then I'm ready to roll.
Perfect.
So yeah.
But speaking of,
absolutely, lots of really good, kind of hearty, or at the opposing end of the scale, fresh, crunchy, and healthy recipes that I put in front of my family, every day of the week.
Amazing. Speaking of home recipes, what is your ultimate comfort meal?
Like now we're into spring, it's heating up, everything's, like today's 23 degrees with a cool breeze. And so it's kind of barbecue weather, it's fresh, crunchy salad weather and regular things that turn up on the table. And I'm not just saying it because obviously, I'm talking to an Indian audience, but I love Indian food and I've collected quite a few recipes. The family kind of cry out for me. My daughter admitted the other day, she goes, she said, I have no off switch for ice cream and curry. And so we just overeat, so there's about 6 or 7 regular dishes, we'll call them curries just to make it easy, but 6 or 7 regular dishes that turn up on the family table, in a cycle of 2 to 3 weeks, and one of them is a Sri Lankan black pepper curry. We had fish moile last night. So stuff like that, And
I saw that you made moong dal the other day on your Instagram.
I was just, to be honest, I was supposed to be reading a contract. This is the truth. I was supposed to be reading a contract and I couldn't be bothered. And I said, does anybody want dal for lunch? And I made dal instead.
Wow.
So yeah, it's quite funny. Amazing. I don't know if that answered the question, but I was going to say at the other end of the scale, it could be just a roast chicken with coleslaw. We have a fun title, which we call, and I think I mentioned it in the book, I do what we call a dog walking chicken. And what that means is I have a spit on the barbecue and I put the chicken on the spit, turn it on. It takes 1 hour precisely.
Okay.
So in that 1 hour, go and walk the dogs, come back, chicken's ready.
What a perfect meal.
So we call it a dog walking chicken, and we serve it with a salad or, with coleslaw or something simple.
And you've been so vocal about your love for India and its food. How did that begin? What attracted you to India and what kept you coming back?
I think it was just a stroke of, it was just by chance, to be honest. We, Australian tourism many years ago, I think it was 2011 or 2012. They've done it a number of years, I think maybe every year since, Ozfest, which is a kind of a cultural and, cultural exchange and business networking opportunity. It's a way of promoting, Indian, Australian relationships. And George and I were actually invited to Ozfest that year. So along with actors and comedians and Aboriginal, dancers and singers and, all sorts of business people, cricketers and all sorts of stuff. So we felt like we were in kind of, what do you call it? Good company. We were just the cooks tagging along. And we were so obviously popular. We didn't realize that MasterChef had kind of hit the screens and become a bit of a hit. I think even the Aussie cricketers were a bit put out that, we were not quite as famous, but, people were kind of flocking to see us. Absolutely. So that was a real thrill. And obviously, I think we just did the big cities. I think I'd have to check, but I think we probably just did Mumbai, and Delhi back then. Right. And so even though I traveled, quite extensively through Southeast Asia, and I'm talking Japan and Thailand and Vietnam, Laos, places like this, Korea, I'd never been to India. So it was a bit of a shock, you know, but in a good way, you know, like when I came back, I couldn't stop talking about it. And I just, you know, doing a street food tour and, you know, eating in all the best restaurants and honestly being spoiled, let's be honest, and being shown all the best things, you know, about food and the things that make, you know, Indian food and regionality different. I don't know, it was a bit of a thrill. So yeah, I've used that opportunity to kind of that interest to, you know, to just keep visiting. And I took my family for the first time, I think it was 2019 before we, you know, couldn't travel. That was just you know, a bit of a revelation, but just, you know, an experience that I'll treasure, and contacts that I'll treasure forever. Still in touch with most of those people. So yeah, really lovely.
You know, like you said, the massive popularity of MasterChef Australia is not lost on anyone. I find it amazing that so many of us consider it a comfort watch. My friends, my family, sometimes I watch it when I need some comfort, when it's actually a rigorous competition. So why do you think something as simple as the act of cooking makes for such riveting television?
Wow, that's a difficult question. I mean, we've talked about it a lot over the years, and the only thing that we can really put it down to, the success, is that I think at the start there was a little bit of magic that existed between Matt, George, and I. You know, that relationship. We knew each other. We had a common way of thinking about offering advice and criticism and encouragement, and I think that really struck a chord here in Australia and overseas. I think people saw that these three, because we were quite unlikely picks, you know, like, you know, we're all a little bit overweight, you know, Matt's like 6'4", George is 5'6", I'm 5'7.5". Like, we just looked, honestly, like not TV people. I really don't think that we looked very TV, and we certainly weren't what was at the time typical reality, you know, where there was a mean judge and there was a, you know, we offered lots of encouragement and we were enthusiastic and passionate always. I think that was one of the things that we promised ourselves, that we would do it for as long as we felt passionate and driven and excited by going to work. And the day that we didn't, then it was time to pass the baton on to someone else, which is effectively what we've done. And we do laugh that the new MasterChef judges are kind of quite beautiful, and that probably they were the three they should have picked 11 years ago. You know what I mean? Because I look at them and go, do you really enjoy food, you three? Because you just look too good, like really too good. And I think too, the contestants, I think that, you know, really we fell in love right at the beginning with, you know, people like us, you know, and they weren't typical television either. And I think unconsciously, maybe through food, and not something that was deliberate or manipulated by television, we just got a beautiful snapshot of the Australian community. You know, so, you know, when people say, you know, oh, you know, there's not enough color on TV and they want to see more, you know, Chinese or Indian or whatever, this happened on MasterChef just because of food.
And so it all happened organically.
And I think that's the most important thing.
And a great joy to watch. Absolutely.
Yeah. Although I never watched it. Like, somebody said to me, do you watch the new MasterChef? I go, no. I never watched the old one either, because I was in it.
Really?
I was there. Yeah, no. I hate watching myself on television. I would watch odd episodes if I wanted to see how a storyline developed. As opposed to how it was in the studio or in the kitchen. And, you know, if there was something amazing, like I remember we visited the Northern Territories. We went to Darwin, we went to Nipmuc National Park and the Catherine Gorge, and it was just one of the most beautiful experiences. I mean, we traveled everywhere in Australia, but, you know, that experience particularly was kind of magical and mystical. I mean, I took a helicopter tour over, you know, the Nipmuc National Park, which is something like 280,000 hectares of bush land and craggy, rocky kind of gorges and things. It was just insanely amazing.
But if someone were to ask you how they should explore India and Australia through their food and cuisine, what would you tell them?
I think the same applies. I think the same applies in both countries, to be honest. I think, those kind of wily foodies that, travel around looking for unique experiences, we all do the same thing. And, social media particularly and online resources are invaluable. And jumping on, looking at what food bloggers are doing, or posting in the city, you might reach out and contact them. For example, when I visited Delhi for the first time, I just reached out and got in touch with like a food tour, and just said, hey, I'm in town, would you like to show me around? And they were like, yeah, so, and the same thing, I think when we hit Jaipur, it was the same thing. We did a food tour, and just for 4 or 5 hours, you kind of set yourself up for the rest of the stay. You've got all these recommendations, but now you're getting local. And I suppose what I'm saying is that I think the local stories, local trails, they're the unique experiences. And I'd say that people that come to Australia, I mean, if you pick a city and you come to Melbourne, you're going to go and see all the sites and you're going to do the things that everybody else does. But if you could find yourself in a little suburb, in a pastry shop, that somebody told somebody that told you about this little place, and you went and sat there and you're listening to the locals and, I don't know, just kind of soaking up a different life for an hour or two. I think that's quite special. And I just wanted to mention that if people are looking for, a place to visit, that the state, websites and Australian tourism do a brilliant job of actually providing some of those local stories. I was actually looking at it a few days ago and I went, wow, I haven't been to that restaurant. And it was on South Australian Tourism's website. Where do we top 50 places to eat? And I went, okay, make a note of that one, Gaz. So, they've gone from, when you think about it, many years ago, they were kind of websites that you just went for crucial numbers to now being a really solid resource for, to help people plan their holidays, which is lovely to see.
That's great. That makes it so much easier.
Cool. All right, then. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too. Thank you so much.
Bye.